Hello everyone and welcome back to Team Comp Tuesday, the series where every Tuesday we take a look at a different team in Genshin Impact. This week we have our second Alhaitham team, after taking a break to take care of some of the other optional teams we had, or some of the other characters that have come out recently. We are back to Alhaitham for kind of his second most popular, or second best, or arguably maybe even his best archetype, which is a purely Quicken based team instead of a hyperbloom team, which a lot of people tend to run. Now let's just briefly talk about the advantages and disadvantages of the two. The obvious advantage of this team is not needing Jingqiu or Yellen, so they can be used together on, say, a Hu Tao team on the other side of the Abyss. The other advantage to this team is it works a little bit better if the units are super invested into. So the advantage of Hyperbloom teams is it doesn't really matter how much damage Alhaitham, the Hydro unit, and to be honest, anybody really has. All you really need is a lot of EM on your trigger for the Hyperbloom and to make as many seeds as humanly possible. Yes, investing more into Alhaitham will be more damage, but it's just like a flat increase. Whereas in Quicken, because there's other factors in play, because Alhaitham's level, energy mass, or energy EM, and that kind of stuff affects how good the Quickens are, and the Quickens are happening a lot more often. That means that high investment into Alhaitham means that this team will outperform, or will gain more from high investment compared to the other team. We're going to be talking about a couple different options for some of the slots here today, but let's get into it. Alright, now let's start off with the characters. We'll be starting off with the two Dendro characters first, just to make things simple. I do recommend running double Dendro, double Electro for this team. There are a couple other options we will talk about, but this is generally the version of this team I've enjoyed, and it also interacts with other teams the best, as it requires very few units that other teams are going to actually care about. But Alhaitham itself, weapon, Iron Sting is a insanely good free-to-play / budget option. If you have a 5-star crit sword, that is generally how I would go. But if you don't have a 5-star crit sword, if you don't have Mist Splitter, Jade Cutter, Alhaitham sword, any of that, Iron Sting is probably your best option. In purely single target, the Umbrella can actually outdamage it due to its passive effect, but this passive effect only triggers on a single unit versus the Iron Sting triggering, just giving a flat damage buff for everybody, or for every target you're hitting. Now, artifact sets, Gilded Dreams is generally the way to go. There is also Paradise Lost here, which is not the greatest option, but you could go it if you wanted to. Actually, no, you don't want to go this. Excuse me. I read it wrong. I thought Quicken was in there as well. So yeah, Gilded Dreams is basically the best set you want to go for. If you don't have a good Gilded Dreams set, a 2-piece of any of the Elemental Mastery sets will be fine. Or 2-piece Dendro plus 2-piece Elemental Mastery is fine. If for some reason you are going single Dendro, which I wouldn't recommend, but if you were to run single Dendro, you want to run Alhaitham on the where is it? The set. The Deepwood set to make Dendro Res Shred. For skills, you want to level them all up equally. I still want to get these up to 9, but that's something I'll be working on over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, you want to level them all up because they all contribute pretty significantly to his damage output. Alright, now let's talk second Dendro. Let's start off with kind of the obvious one, the best one, the one you probably will be using. Nahida. She's obviously just insane for any Dendro team due to her Elemental Mastery sharing, her powerful self-damage, and her buffs that she gives the team. It's all gravy, baby. It's all great. Weapons, Sack Frags is what I like to run. Elemental Mastery, high amounts of Elemental Mastery. Sometimes the skill recharge actually can be useful if like you nuke a wave and then want to recast, but realistically it's just because it's a high Elemental Mastery base weapon, or substat weapon. If you have it, you can use her weapon, obviously. Favonius could actually be pretty good in this team as well, especially if you have the artifacts to support it, as we will be using some energy-hungry characters, so any excuse to get some Favonius weapons in here is well appreciated. Your second Dendro character is going to be on Deepwood Memories. This is just because Alhaitham has slightly higher personal damage, and he'll be the one triggering Quickens more often, so you'd rather have him more Elemental Mastery stats, and your second character with the Deepwood sets. Now for main stats, you want to go Elemental Mastery, and Elemental Mastery, or you can go Dendro Damage, Goblet, and Crit Rate or Crit Damage Circlet. Just kind of go with whatever you have better substats with. The sweet spot is ideally you want to get Nahida close to something like 900 to 850 range if you can, because that's around where her buff will max out. But you don't have to. But that's around where a lot of people try to aim for, around that 800 Elemental Mastery, so you could do so accordingly. Talents, her E and her Burst are what you want to level. If you're wondering, the E is the priority skill, as it does just most of her kit is based around her E. Her elemental skill. So I would highly recommend leveling that first. Alright, now let's briefly talk about Yao Yao real quick here. Yao Yao is an option if you picked her up during the Lantern Rite instead of Nahida. If Nahida's on another team and you need to use her, or you don't want to use Kuki and you want to use a second Electro damage dealer. I'm pretty sure for her you probably want to use something like Favlance. I think her burst is relatively expensive. Yeah, 80 energy cost. So Favlance on her. And for artifacts, you want to go the Deepwood Memory set as well. And I believe you want to go HP. Yes, her stuff scales with HP. So you want to go HP, either HP healing percent or HP. Probably HP healing percent is what I would go for. I would still run her on the Deepwood so that she can shred the res for Alhaitham, so he can bring just more damage instead of, say, putting her on the Clam set. And then for talents, you don't really care about her auto attack, so just level up her E and her burst. Yao Yao is actually a pretty nice unit for the game, but as I have so many Dendro characters already, it's probably be a little bit before I actually get to building her. But she is a completely fine option in the second Dendro slot for this team. Alright, now let's talk about the other units in the team. We'll be starting off with my preferred double Electros. We'll start with Beidou. Beidou is pretty good for this team because her burst is just good on fast attacking characters, because it does decent damage. Because it can jump to AoE targets, it means it can hit multiple enemies at once, giving multiple instances of Quicken. Just overall a good, solid pick here. And definitely because we're going to be running double Electro, not going to have to worry a ton about her normal energy issues. Weapons, Serpent Spine, if you have it, any crit rate, crit dam sword is perfectly acceptable for here. Luxurious Sea Lord, if you have it, is also a pretty solid option. If you're looking at the purely free-to-play weapons, you probably want to go Prototype Archaic. There aren't really a lot of super good greatswords for her. The Inazuma craftable greatsword could be alright. Range Slasher is actually generally pretty good for her, but not necessarily in this team as much so. So I would probably avoid it, but you could run it if you want to. I would probably either use like a Black Cliff, a Serpent Spine, or if you have any of the 5-star greatswords, or even the Skyward greatsword is actually pretty good for her as well. Artifacts. Emblem is 100% the way to go for her. As you want to build a good chunk of energy recharge, but you care about your burst damage. Goblet, generally energy recharge or attack. Energy recharge is generally probably what you're going to have to do unless you have God tier substats, because she does need probably close to 160 energy recharge. So I would probably roll the energy recharge sands, Electro Goblet, and then either crit damage or crit rate on the circlet. Talents, ultimate is the important one, but E also can do a ton of damage if you time the perfect block correctly. If you time the perfect block correctly, it can be like, what's that? Like a 600% motion value, so pretty high. The burst is what does a lot of her damage. Her burst also gives damage reduction, which is actually pretty good for this team. As it just means that since we don't have a shielder, it just means that when you get hit, you won't even be taking really that much damage. And is actually really, really nice. All right, now let's talk about second Electro here. Kuki is generally going to be the one of the better options for this team, as this gives the team a healer, which is nice, as well as her just being pretty good in Quicken teams in general, since she builds full EM, so she can get quite a bit of damage out of the Quickens. Weapon, Iron Sting is your go-to option. Kazua's sword, if you have it, Freedom Sworn is fine. Favonia's sword is also not too bad if you notice you're having energy recharge problems on the rest of your team. Artifact set, again, another Gilded Dreams user. You can run something else on her. You could run Clam if you really notice you need the healing. Or you could also go double Elemental Mastery sets. In this team, you actually probably could go for an Electro set as well, like 2-piece Electro, just because Quicken does scale off bonus damage, but I would personally just go for the double Elemental Mastery if you can't swing a Gilded set. Full Elemental Mastery, again, Elemental Mastery Sands, Elemental Mastery Goblet, Elemental Mastery Circlet. Obviously, the nice thing about her is that Quicken scales off Elemental Mastery, so having a healer that wants to build full Elemental Mastery is just nice. It works out clean. For skills, really the only one you need to worry about is her skill, because that's the healing. You can level up the burst if you want. It's alright. We're not really here to do a lot of damage with it, though. We're just here to proc a lot of Electro hits with it, so don't really have to worry about leveling it. Now, if you're going to go the Yao Yao route, I would probably use Fischl as my second Electro character instead of Kuki, since you don't really need two healers. So, weapons, Skyward Harp, or any crit rate or crit damage based bow. Also, Stringless is pretty good here, since we will be doing Quicken, so we do actually get some bonus from the Elemental Mastery, and the passive is just very strong for her. Favonia's bow is an option as well if you need the energy on other units. Artifacts, any 2-piece combination of like attack and electro damage is generally where I would go. You could run a 4-set Thundering Fury as well if you wanted to, but especially with higher constellations, the downtime on Oz gets a lot lower. But especially if you don't have C6, this a 4-piece Thundering Fury is actually quite good. For stats, crit rate or crit damage on the Circlet, Goblet is electro damage, and Sands is attack. For talents, Oz is the main one you care about leveling up. I really should do this. Let's just do it live. You really want to level up Oz because Oz is most of your damage. You don't really care about your burst. It does do okay damage as you're flying around, but a lot of times, honestly, you're just popping your burst to drop another Oz. So Oz is really the only thing you need to care about having leveled. Alright, now I'm just going to kind of rapid fire through some other options you have for a team like this. Zhongli is an option if you want a shield. You shouldn't really need a shield between Beidou's passive damage reduction and high amounts of healing from Kuki, but if you want it, you get it. Weapons in this team, would recommend Black Tassel. Favonius is also not a bad option. Artifacts, Millith is generally the way to go. Shield strength, bonus attack for everybody. 2-piece gives him HP. Pretty solid set. HP. You could go crit rate on Circlet if you are worried about not having enough energy recharge to proc your Favonius Lance. Talents, just really care about leveling up the shield, so that is the E. Next, Kazuha. Now, Kazuha is very good in the Kaching variant of this team, but not quite as good in the Alhaitham variant of the team, of Quicken teams. This is due to the fact that you can't swirl Dendro. So in more Electro-focused Quicken teams, Anemo units end up being pretty good, because not only can they themselves swirl Electro to do more Quicken damage, but they can also increase the damage of the Electro characters. But in a team like this, that is more Dendro damage forward than Electro damage, and emo units tend to be a little bit worse. So that can free him up for other sides. But Favonius Sword is the way to go. Artifacts, VV, Elemental Mastery, Elemental Mastery, Elemental Mastery. Talents, you want to level up all of them to get good damage out of him. Another option, of course, is where there's Kazuha, you can always play Sucrose since they are basically very similar units. Here, Sacrificial Fragments is a solid option for her. Artifacts, very exact same thing as Kazuha, Elemental Mastery, Elemental Mastery, Elemental Mastery, as well as being on the Viridescent Venerer set. Skills, E, and Burst are what I would level. Alright, now we're going to be doing a rough rotation here. As it is a hyperbloom team, it's pretty easy. You just want to keep as much Electro and Dendro rolling as humanly possible. In general, lead with Nihida stuff, and then you can cast Kuki's thing, and then Beidou's thing, and then you can go to Alhaitham. If you have burst up, you can burst. If you don't, just start with an E into some normal in charges and just melt through him. Yeah, we didn't even need the burst there. This team does quite a bit of damage, much like all the Alhaitham teams, much like a lot of the Dendro teams. Dendro just has really good floors on how much damage his teams do, even if, like, at super high investments and extremely well play, they're not as good as other options. The floor is there, so this is a pretty solid team. And that is going to be it for this episode of Team Comp Tuesday. I hope you enjoyed this look at Alhaitham Quicken teams. Quite a bit of fun. I like this team. I don't know if I like this more than Hyperbloom though. I think I do prefer Hyperbloom, but it's nice to just have this team in, in the back pocket for if both Jingcho and Yellen are needed for another team, as it is literally just one unit difference, so very easy to build. I want to thank you for coming out. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.